Welcome back to Master Glass. I am your host, Livio, and today I am going to show you 4 solid variations to the old-fashioned cocktail. Let's go. The first variation that I'm going to make is the pink old-fashioned. It's going to be kind of with a little pink hue in it. In order to make that happen, the first thing I'm going to do here, sort of as an accent, I'm going to take somewhat of a generous amount of Pama Pomegranate liqueur, and I'm going to just coat the glass. Now, I want the aroma to make its way around the glass, but I also want some of it left. So in essence, when I go ahead and pour out the content, I'm gonna keep some of it because I want it to affect the flavor, just like that. In here next, I'm gonna go ahead and put the ice cube. The reason why I want to put the ice cube here now is I want it to temper. When I pour in the drink, I don't want it to crack. So we're gonna just let that sit right there and temper so that we don't crack the ice. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my beaker, and in here, I'm gonna just add not a lot of ice. This drink is basically going to be served over the cube anyway, so a little bit just to help dilute a little bit and mix a little bit as well. The next ingredient I'm going to add is 2 ounces of Bombay Sapphire gin. One of the things that you really want to do when you're making these variations to the old fashioned is to have a higher alcohol proof type of a beverage, which is exactly what this is. So in here, I'm going to add 2 ounces or 60 mils of Bombay Sapphire gin. Now, as I've explained before, many people will make their make their cocktail with the cheapest ingredient first. I try as much as I can to go with the lightest and the base spirit first. Do it how you please. The next thing I'm going to add here are 2 generous dashes of cherry bitters. There's 1 and there's 2. And last but not least, to make sure there's enough sweetness here, I'm going to just add 1 bar spoon of liquid Alchemist simple syrup. Just like that. Okay. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and give this a nice little stir. Now at this point here, I'm not exactly happy with how the pink is going to come out because I don't see enough of a red hue. So in here, just kind of on the fly, a la minute, I'm going to just go ahead and add about a bar spoon of the Pama. There we go. There we go. And another stir. Again, we're not stirring like when we stir a Manhattan. I don't need to stir really that long because it's going over a cube anyway. Now, as you know, when you stir with the beaker, you can use a julep strainer. I will be using a hawthorn because it's just a little easier. And strain this in. There we go. As you can see, it has this gentle pink little hue to it, which I really like. And in order to finish this up, I'm going to just put on top, I'm going to float. I bought this at a store called Dress to Drink. You can find it online, and it's just a dehydrated rose petal that is edible, by the way, and it's dusted with edible gold leaf. And I'm going to set that right over here. Now it's time to make the next one. The next version of the old fashioned that I'm going to make, I'm going to basically call the Polynesian Old Fashioned. And it's basically inspired by those Polynesian cocktails, the tiki movement, and obviously the Mai Tai. As you can see, the recipe, or I should say the ingredients that I have here on top of my bench are very similar to what you would find in a Mai Tai, the one made by Trader Vic. I have added ice to my glass. I'm going to go ahead and in the beaker, I'm going to just add a little more ice here as well. There we go. I'm going to start with 2 ounces of Denizen. This is their 100 proof. Again, I am looking for higher proof alcoholic beverages. This one here is actually a blend of dark rum from Guyana and rum agricole from Martinique, distilled in pot, wooden vat, and French Seville stills. Pretty cool, very funky. I'm looking for that nice little funky, grassy, banana notes of dark rums. And again, higher proof. So in here, I'm gonna go ahead and pour 2 ounces, 60 milliliters of the rum. I'm gonna augment that. This is gonna come nice and boozy with 1/4 of an ounce of orange curacao. Just like so. Okay, now Old Fashions should always have bitters in them. And so I'm gonna go ahead and just use these lime bitters from Free Bros. Again, 2 dashes. I didn't like that first dash, so added just a tad more. And last but not least, for a little touch of sweetness, I'm gonna go ahead and give it 1/4 of an ounce of orgeat. And I'm using the liquid Alchemist again for this. Orgeat has that nice almondy flavor, which just lends itself really well to rums, lends itself really well to the citrus notes coming both from the curacao here and from the lime bitters. Let's go ahead and give this a nice little generous stir in this case here, because we have the orgeat, which is a little thicker ingredient. Okay. Done with that, we're gonna go ahead and strain. Alrighty, and so in this one here, I'm gonna go ahead and use a little bit, give it a little touch of tropical, right? I'm gonna put a little frond of a pineapple right here. I've cut it to size to fit in and kind of wedge itself into the glass. And on top of it, again, from that company that I talked about, Dress to Drink, I'm just gonna put on top of the leaf of the frond, which is on top of the cube, a nice little dehydrated lime wheel. And there we have the Polynesian Old Fashioned. So the next version I'm gonna make here is the Breakfast Old Fashioned. It takes its name and a lot of its inspiration from the Breakfast Martini made by Salvatore Calabrese, who is an incredible Italian bartender living and working in London. By the way, if you want to see me make that cocktail, why don't you go ahead and drop a comment below and I'll make it in one of my next episodes. So this one here includes orange marmalade in the recipe, but also another thing to keep in mind is that the Old Fashioned was once called the cocktail before the term cocktail basically changed into becoming the name of a family of drinks. The cocktail was a spirit of any type, sugar, water, and bitters. And the original cocktail was actually a morning beverage. So breakfast Old Fashioned, morning beverage, sounds like a perfect match here. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my beaker, and in this case here, I am not going to add any ice. I'll explain why in a second. But I am gonna put in 2 ounces, 60 milliliters of Douce VSOP cognac. VSOP cognacs are typically aged over 4 years. Most cognac companies give you a good bang for your buck, including these folks here. They'll age it for way longer. They could go for 4, but they go for a lot longer because their house style, they want it to be a little bit more tasty. More time spent in the barrel, more tasty is the product. To keep it in sort of the cognac family, I'm gonna add 1/4 of an ounce of Grand Marnier, which is a cognac-based orange liqueur. I do have a video on Grand Marnier. Not only do I have a video on all of the lineup, but I also have a video on other Grand Marnier cocktails. So you can go ahead and check that out. I will leave the link below. The next thing I'm gonna do is, in this case here, I'm just gonna add 2 dashes of traditional, I should say, aromatic bitters. There's 1, there's 2. Now these dashers here don't really give me what I like, so let's go ahead and throw in a 3rd one. Now here's where the marmalade comes into play. In the breakfast martini, Calabrese uses literally orange marmalade. This here is an orange marmalade spread, which means it's a little more liquidy. It's super tasty, by the way. Really, really delicious, not sweet at all. It has a nice tart, acidic flavor to it, but the Grand Marnier is gonna help with sweetening it up a little bit. And as you can see, it just goes a little bit easier. It's gonna dissolve a little bit easier inside the beaker. Now this is why I had not added any ice, because what I want to do here is I want to dissolve the drink just by giving some nice little stirs here to dissolve the marmalade inside the alcohol. I am gonna fine strain it, so I want the flavor to go in, but I'm not too worried about how it's gonna look in the beaker. I'm just worried about how it's gonna look in the glass. So let's go ahead and give this a nice little mix right here. Okay. Now I'm gonna add the ice and give it a nice stir. Okay. Okay, give this a nice stir. Just like so. And again, in order to make sure that it looks good, we're gonna fine strain. Go. Now to garnish this one, I'm going to just go ahead and use dehydrated orange marmalade, and perhaps on top of it, just to give this a little more color, whether you float it on top or to the side. I'm going to float it right on top here, just like that. It moved anyway. A little cherry, and for this one here, we have the breakfast Old Fashioned. This brings me to my last Old Fashioned. I'm really excited about this one because it's an Amaro Old Fashioned. Now I get asked so frequently to make Amaro cocktails on this channel. I have a few videos on Amari. I'll leave the link below. If you haven't checked them out, they're really popular. People really love this category here. So once again, I'm gonna take the beaker, add some ice. Now this one here might have a little bit of overlap because I'm not adding a sweetener in the traditional style. I'm adding a little bit more of Averna. And Averna is an Amaro, and Amari are typically bittersweet liqueurs. Some of them more sweeter than others. Averna is a sweeter version thereof. So I'm gonna grab 2 ounces or 60 mils of Wild Turkey 101 and pour them right in here, just like that. And in this case here, because I don't have a real sweetener, I'm gonna just add 3/4 of an ounce or 22.5 milliliters of Amaro. Now, if you look at this recipe, right, philosophically, this could be also a Manhattan on the rocks. It could be an Amaro Manhattan on the rocks, or it could be an Amaro Old Fashioned. Again, just depend philosophically where you want to put it. Of course, in this video, it's part of the Old Fashioned family because it's being stirred, served on the rocks, all boozy. And then we're going to go ahead and add 2.5 dashes, I should say, of these Australian coffee bitters. And we're going to give this a nice stir. By the way, did I forget to ask you to like if you have enjoyed this video so far? If you have, why don't you go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and I'll have this bad boy ready for you in just a second. So we're gonna go ahead and strain this Amaro Old Fashioned right here over that beautiful cube. Just like that. And on the garnish here, it gets a little, I should say, difficult to do it the right way, but with these little tweezers, it becomes a lot easier. I'm gonna just go ahead and float 3 espresso beans that are gonna stand for health, wealth, and happiness, okay? And right there is our Amaro Old Fashioned. Well, my friends, not that making 4 cocktails is a lot of work, but after a little bit of work, it's really nice to be rewarded with this part, which is the tasting. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the first one, which was the Pink Old Fashioned, gin-based. Oh, wow. It has a nice aroma. Oh yeah, the cherry bitters. It has a nice little cherry aroma to it. Really, really nice. I can't believe just a couple of dashes did all of that. Oh, bam. Oh, bam. So the gin is giving just a little bit of citrus. It's not being able to express itself a whole lot, even though it's 90% of the drink. But piled on top of it is that little bit of tartness from the pomegranate liqueur and that really nice nutty dark cherry flavor coming from the bitters. I'm excited to let you know that we have launched a spirits course on masteryourglass.com. While you're there, you can also find this t-shirt in the shop. You can find the Cocktail Clarity cocktail book. You can also find some free resources such as flashcards. Just go to masteryourglass.com, and the course is already heavily discounted, but if you enter the code MYG Spirits, it'll get discounted even more. Let's get back to the video. This is a lovely, lovely, lovely cocktail. Really, really good. I had not made it before I made it here. I wrote it down on paper and I figured it would work, but I didn't quite know how well. That's a home run right there. Moving on to the next one, which was our Polynesian Old Fashioned, very tiki forward. These types of recipes are always a no-brainer. I don't even need to taste this to tell you it's delicious, but why wouldn't I? Oh gosh, yeah, just that nice grassiness, nice little sweetness from the, or I should say nuttiness from the amaretto, nice little citrus zip, which is also making my mouth water. Delicious, just really, really delicious. And again, what's really cool is these are completely opposite, yet their platform or their template is actually identical. We're going to move on to the breakfast Old Fashioned. This is what I would drink when I wake up in the morning. Oh, delicious, delicious, so, so good. The freshness of the cognac is the base, the Grand Marnier giving that touch of orange, and that marmalade by no stretch of the imagination taking over the show. Sometimes when you think of marmalade, you're thinking of big, bold, fruity flavors. Not here. In there, just a whisper to the point where you wouldn't really know where the orange flavor came from because it's delicate, it's really, really nice. And to my palate, this is what spirit-forward, boozy, bold cocktails should taste like. Those flavors shouldn't be as bursting. The spirit and the alcohol should have the main stage here. Last but not least, Amaro Old Fashioned. If you know me, you know how much I love Amari. So no brainer here, but let's give it a try. There is just something magic about the combination between an Amaro, especially something like Averna here, which has that orangey pastry flavor, and bourbon. They just kind of were meant to be together. A little bit of coffee notes here as well are really nice. That warrants a second sip. It is delicious. Now, I've explained to you why these are Old Fashions, because the Old Fashioned originally was the definition of the word cocktail, and the word cocktail meant spirit of any type, bitters, sugar, and water, which all of these have. However, leave a comment below if you have any other thoughts or questions, and do come back to Master Your Glass for more expert instruction for everyday consumption.